I know. Okay. Well, good morning. And guess who we have back today? My good friend, Jenny, the senior living expert.
Good
And
morning.
yeah, everybody loves to see you.
You're
And
so sweet.
yeah, it's so weird. We met on TikTok because I was going through
Yeah,
what I was going through. And yeah, we've become friends. I feel like I know you. We've never met in
I
person.
know. It's so funny. I've met so many friends on TikTok of all places. And I mean, one, Natalie, I collaborate with, and she's in
Yeah,
San Diego, and I flew to see her and
yeah.
met some really great friends like you. And I feel like we should have a big like party one day and get
Yeah, we
together.
should. We should all get together.
We
Um,
should.
so I told Jenny that let's just jump on and start because, I don't know if you mind, Jenny, sharing what you've just gone through yourself.
Yeah, I this week actually just lost my grandmother, and she was 97. So by no means, I know that like in your family, you've had some tragedy and deaths very, very young.
Hmm.
And she definitely lived a full life. She was very important to me, and I would always make videos about her. And she was like sort of the face of my company. And ever
Yeah.
since I was a little girl, we've always been very close. And my oldest is 24, and for him to have had a great grandma all these years too, and is incredible. And she was so instrumental weekly in our lives. So, um, it was she was in assisted living, which obviously that's what I do for a living, and I'm
Yeah.
a big advocate of it. And then, long story short, but she ended up going to a hospice house. They thought she was going to pass quicker than she did, but then she didn't. So my mom and I ended up taking care of her at my home for about a week, a little over a week. Um, and it was a beautiful experience. It was exhausting, but I am glad I was able to do it. And for me, I feel like it was so different because I knew it was only a certain amount of time. Like I knew it wasn't forever. So
Right.
I could kind of, even though it was like the longest week or so ever, I could push through it knowing, okay, this isn't going to be forever, as to where I feel like, you and so many others that go through caregiver burnout, there's no end in sight, which is really, really difficult. So, but yes,
Mhm.
thank you. She did pass. And so I was just kind of mourning that this week, but it it brought me on a new level, I think, with my clients. Even though I've cared for family members in the past, it resonates more so now, and I can really identify with that exhaustion and just your life is put on hold. I mean, your entire life is put on hold, and
Yeah.
especially, and I know this is the case with you too, when in many families also, that not everybody steps up. It's usually one sibling doing everything, or one, whoever. In this case, it was my mom and I. I'm lucky there was two of us, but
Right.
it doesn't work that way in most families. So it's very relatable.
Yeah, and it's really helped me because it's weird sometimes sharing your life online. And I know some people, don't understand. But for me, it's because I know that other people feel the same way, but they may not have an outlet or be able
Yeah.
to talk to other people and understand that feeling resentful, feeling burdened, even though
Yes.
you truly love the person,
Oh, yes.
and you don't want to make them feel bad because you know it's not their fault.
I know.
And I know that that's part of it. It's like the guilt of even
Yeah.
talking about it because you have nobody to talk to and you don't want to make the person feel guilty that you're taking care of them. It's just the situation.
That's so well said. And I will tell you, that's the one thing I do. And too, I tell people on videos, like, it's okay to have these feelings. People are
Mhm.
so ashamed, and they'll private message me a lot and be like, I am so, like you said, resentful, guilt ridden, angry, just bitter, just all these horrible emotions that are coming up, right? And they're like ashamed to say it. And I want to be that safe spot. And I will talk about it sometimes, like, it's okay to feel that way because we're human and we can only handle so much. And it's okay. It's genuinely okay. People don't have to feel guilty about it. But I know it's hard to work through.
Well, and it's interesting because when I do share my story, well, and it really helps because then other people in my comments share their story or they'll
Yeah.
email me and it makes you feel not so alone. But then I get so many people saying, "Oh, you're such a good daughter. Oh, it's so great she has you." And don't get me wrong, that's nice to hear. But when you're in the midst of feeling angry and resentful, you feel like, oh, don't get it wrong. I'm no saint because I'm having these feelings
Right.
of I just want to deke out and take the next plane to,
Yes.
Nirvana
And that doesn't make you a bad person.
and
That
not
makes
come
you
back.
human. That makes you
Yeah.
human, And I think it is nice when you get those comments though, because people on the outside can see like what I see, what you're doing for your mom. Even though, you're like, I'm not a saint. Nobody's a saint.
Yeah.
And I know it may not seem like you're doing a lot because you're having all these feelings associated with it, but you are. You're doing incredible work, and people can see that looking from the outside in. So even though you have
Well,
these feelings, it's important.
and I also want other people to know. I watched this documentary one time, and it was about this whole family who their kids had schizophrenia, like five
Mm,
of them out of it was
yeah.
on Netflix. It's a great watch. But what happened was there was one sister, so two of the brothers were put in care, like live in a living facility. And she ended up being the only one who like went to visit them. Jimmy was in charge of
Oh,
their
wow.
care. And they even talked to the other siblings. And it's kind of like my family, where a lot of us don't get along, we don't talk. And she said on camera, like, I don't understand how I ended up being the only one. She said, I promised my parents that, I would take care of them.
Yeah.
And not that this like says anything, but the other ones were brothers, and they were all like, yeah, God bless her for doing it, but I didn't think I could do it, or, I don't think I had the capacity to do it.
Yeah.
And, you wonder sometimes because people themselves are like, I can't do it. Like, I can't. But
Right.
here's the thing, they don't have to do everything. If there's a couple of
Right.
you, you're all sharing in it.
And that's just it. And I apologize for the background noise. My dog was trying to make himself comfy on his little bed. I'm like,
I didn't
stop.
even hear
Okay, good. Because I was like snapping my fingers at him. No, but of course, right?
Yeah.
No, you're right though. It's like, and I think so many families feel that way. You're like, gosh, if just some of the responsibility could be shared, or anything like that would be so helpful. Unfortunately, it doesn't, like you said, in that documentary is a perfect example. She was like, why is it just me? And it always falls on, it seems like one person because of family dynamics and other things like that. And I think just recognizing, to your point earlier, like your limit and recognizing what you can do and cannot. Because if you're the one taking on everything and the weight of the world is on your shoulders, just recognizing like your limitations. And we are not all, Superman. We can't do everything. We do a lot, but just knowing before we hit our breaking point, because I see it all the time and I know you feel it too.
Well, and what's unfortunate is there is no other option.
Yeah.
And that's why
You're right.
I'm in therapy for a lot of reasons. But and actually it's
You and me
brought up,
both.
yeah, it's brought up a lot of actually past traumas, you know what I
Yes.
mean? Like from my family, from other things.
Yes.
Like all these feelings have come out, and then it's like, I hate you. And I've been talking about this recently because I feel like I have some sign on my head because you're a nice person. Sometimes I feel like people take advantage of you.
Absolutely.
And I think this like feels like and that's how all these feelings coming up because I feel not that I'm being taken advantage of, not by my mom,
Right.
but and and then in the midst of all this, my mom is in litigation. There's an update to that. I
Right.
can't update until things get to a certain point.
Sure.
But I will
That's
tell
stressful though.
you, but I will tell you that they're still blaming me, saying that I did this so that I could get money. There
You're
is no
like,
money. There is no money.
well, that's just it. You're like, where does this money coming from that everybody thinks? It's
Yeah.
people
And so that's,
caregiving. Yeah.
yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, so on top of even what I've been doing, like that's added on to the stress
Right.
that, and I think to myself, I am the least person who cares about money.
Right. It always happens that way, I feel like. And it's like you said, it's almost like the one person just gets dumped on more and more and more. They're already handling these caregiving duties. And then so many times family dynamics come up, or the blame game, or the finances, and you're like, I don't want money. But I don't know why people associate with that. And caregiving does bring out the worst in people. They say weddings and funerals bring out the worst. I think taking care of an aging parent does. And you are absolutely right about the resurfacing family traumas that come up. It is incredible, and it's painful. It's really painful, what comes up. And people are, I don't know what's going on my screen here. Sorry. People are just dealing with it and trying to, like, they don't want to relive it necessarily because you've sort of dealt with it the best you can, or put it in the past, and
Yep.
and everything comes up again in a different capacity, and you're the role of the caregiver now, not the parent. So it's all very different and hard to deal with.
And I think too, so, and I was honest on here, really about, I mean, not long ago, about a month ago, for quite a while, I didn't even upload because I
Mhm.
had no capacity. I
Yes,
didn't even want to wake up. And I'm not saying I wouldn't do anything to myself,
I
but
know.
every morning I would wake up, I would open my eyes, and I would think, I just don't want to deal with anything today because,
Yes,
I'd be getting emails or I'd be getting phone calls of stuff I have to take care of. And you have to remember too, a lot of us we have to work ourselves.
right.
And so
Exactly.
trying to organize somebody else's life and, advocate for them. And I told you, I put her in there so that she
Right.
would be well taken care of. I wouldn't have to like do, the pills, the medication, all that stuff. And then, like a month after, it changed hands to a new management. And then all of a sudden I found out they weren't giving her blood pressure medication. And
It's
the whole
horrific.
point was that I did it so that
Exactly.
it would be easier.
You could have peace of mind, right?
Right. And
I know.
it just always seemed like there's something. But I will tell you that, thank God for social workers.
Yeah. They're
Thank
amazing.
God for social
They're
workers.
amazing.
Well, most of them. I'm sure some people I've heard,
Right.
but the ones I've dealt with, um, I told them they feel like life preservers
That's
because
a great way to describe them.
yes, because I felt like I was drowning.
Yeah.
And I finally had somebody to help me navigate or answer questions
Yes.
that I still am fumbling my way through it.
It is one of the hardest things to navigate. And I think so many of us now, because there's this explosion of the generation that's our parents' age that are all of a sudden aging, and it's like, oh my gosh, it's in the forefront and we're all having to deal with it. And it is the hardest thing to navigate. I used to think that like having infants and toddlers and everything was hard. No, this is harder. And I see so many of my clients struggling with exactly some of the same things and I've gotten that way too, like not wanting to get out of bed, and not just so much even with just my grandma. I mean, just in general sometimes. And but you said we still have jobs to do, we still have, but it's exhausting. And like you said, the navigation process, I think, is something that my clients say to me, that's like their biggest stress. And I think, even I work in healthcare, and sometimes I look at scenarios and I'm like, okay, if I'm trying to give myself a refresher or something and I understand the basics, like I just don't understand how people who don't have any knowledge get by, like what they're being told. It makes me just horrified to think about it. And there's so many different just terminology to begin with. And then every, people sometimes will yell at me on TikTok because they don't like that I won't just give blanket answers. Well, I'm
Yeah.
not going to, because everybody's situation is so different. And it's very, very personalized, and everybody's finances look different. Everybody's logistical needs, care needs, everything is family dynamics. Everybody's is different. So there's no way to just do like a, blanket approach. But I think navigating that process, like you said, it is truly overwhelming, exhausting, and just burns you out quick.
Well, and I want to reiterate because, my mom watches all my videos, but again, you're not blaming the person.
No,
It's the
no,
situation. And I think about it, I myself am going to be, well, hopefully, if you're lucky,
right.
and it's so bad right now and costs so much. How is it
I
going to
know.
be 10, 20 years from now?
It's so interesting because I remember about 15 years ago when I worked for a senior living community, and this senior living community to this day is still all private pay. And I remember asking like upper management at that point, I remember saying, what are we thinking in terms of 10, 15, 20 years from now? Because the days of pensions, and this was, like I said, 15 years ago, the days of pensions will be gone. You know, just
Yeah,
life is
yeah.
expensive, which it goes up all the time. And their answer at the time was, well, maybe there'll be some Medicare programs and I remember thinking Medicare won't pay for that. But what I
Yeah.
have seen though, and I know you talked about it recently too, was the waiver. It's called something different in every state, and I have a link for every
Yeah.
state if anybody needs it. But um, the Medicaid passport waiver, it's called here in Ohio, but it's called something different in every state. Um, More and more communities are accepting that waiver now, like good communities, which I am
Mhm.
thrilled to see. Not only are they accepting it, but some of them have reduced their private pay requirements from 1 year to 6 months. And it's honestly, I think that's the direction that more and more communities are going to have to go with, and that's okay. It's a great option, so I'm happy to see that at least.
Well, and that was another thing. That was a whole beast I never even heard
Yeah,
about till right
right.
before. And in, like you just said, that people will be able to go into nicer places. Never, I think back a year from now, never did I think I could get my mom in this beautiful, it's
I
only two
know.
years old. I thought because she didn't have any money that I would have
Right.
to put her in like a nursing home. I mean, what
Yes.
you think of the smelly,
Yes.
gross nursing home.
Absolutely. And I think so many people think that. And that's maybe what prevents them from taking that next step. And it's so unfortunate because like you said, there are beautiful places and there are places that take waiver that aren't so beautiful,
Yep.
but there are some really great options everywhere. And I think that fear, along with just, people not wanting to move because they think it's an institution like place, they just wait longer and longer and they get sicker and sicker and their care needs develop such that sometimes they don't have an option but to go to a nursing home at that point. So it's good to look earlier and realize there are options that you can reside in a
Right.
beautiful place.
Well, and I've talked about this a lot. So the attorney we know, both his parents had to go into dementia at the same time, dementia care, and it cost $12,000 a month for each of them. So
I
that's
know.
24. So that's $100,000 almost every 4 months.
I
And
know.
what's sad is you think you work your whole life that you can like be taken care of.
I know.
And I think to myself, most of us now are struggling. We don't even have enough to make it paycheck to paycheck,
Exactly.
let alone think ahead. And
Right.
that's why I talk so much about estate planning now,
Yes.
because for the amount that you'll put in to do your estate planning,
Yes.
that
So worth
when
it.
it comes to this, your kids won't have to like fight over it. Money could be protected, that
Yes.
won't
Thank you for
have
saying
to
that.
be sucked into the system.
Exactly. There's ways and I don't want to say manipulate because it's not
Oh, they
manipulating.
know.
It's just,
I said it's a game. When you
it's
talk
a
about
game.
spend down, they give you ways to spend down. Even
They
like
do.
they send you, and
Like
I'm like,
legally.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
wait a minute, like
I know. It's crazy. It's crazy.
these,
And I remember when my grandma she was in, after she sold her home like 20 years ago, she moved into like a 55 and older community. And then the last year we were like, okay, she needs to move to like an independent / assisted living community. And it was a waiver community. She literally had maybe 4 months, of private pay.
yeah,
And I'm like,
yeah,
okay, we need to move you now because there's not many options.
right,
And they'll be full soon
right.
and you're still with it cognitively, like we have to do it now. And I'm glad we did. And she was able to get a huge 2-bedroom apartment with a washer
Wow.
and dryer, assisted living, I mean, beautiful. And
Yeah,
she paid a few months and then
right.
was on waiver and everything was covered.
And that's what people have to understand, which I didn't. Again, I'm talking to people that like were like me, knew nothing, that a lot of places have criteria. Sometimes you have to
Right.
pay 3 months private pay. Sometimes
Right.
you have to pay a year private pay before they will accept the elderly waiver
Yes.
from you.
Yes.
And so
Everybody's different.
you have to make sure when you go in that you have the right questions to ask.
Yes. or use someone like myself because we will advocate.
Yeah.
There's been situations too, like, if I work with a community and I have a good relationship with them and they require a year of private pay, there's been instances where I've had a client that I think would be a really, really good fit for that community, but they have 7 months of private pay. And I've been able to sort of negotiate and just really speak on my client's behalf and be like, listen, yes, we could look elsewhere. I really do think it is a good fit for them and they'll work with me. I mean,
Right.
does it happen always? No, but
They've said
it's
that
just
too. I
about
found
knowing.
one. I found one that said they were a year private pay, but they're like, "Oh, we'll work with you." Well, I'm sure it was like $8,000 a month, and the room had
Yeah,
no kitchenette. It was just a room like
I
this big
know.
with a bathroom.
I
But
know.
that's another thing. Well, a couple of things. So much on my mind because now I
I
just want to
know.
like explain to people. But like you said, if somebody has a house, so you have no liquid assets, okay,
Yes,
and you go in and you're private paying, and then when you run out, if you go on the elder care waiver, once you sell that house and you have assets, again, you can't give it to anybody, you can't trust it to anybody.
that's right.
They look back 5 years. So if
That's
you've
right.
given any money, they're gonna try and take it back, or they're gonna put liens on things.
Right.
And so not only that do you go back to private pay, but they want back what they paid starting in the
Right.
beginning of the elder waiver. And I never even had thought of that, but they're going to
Yeah.
want their money back.
Of course.
So
Of course
depending
they
on
do.
how long you've been there on the elderly waiver or whatever you call it in your state,
Right.
they're going to take that right off the top.
Yeah. And that's to your point, that's why it's so good to plan because if you
Yes,
can plan enough, even, sometimes you can't always make that 5 year look back period, but even if you could do, I've had attorneys here locally work with clients, that can do it in like with a 3 year look, but there's enough
right,
that they can sort of
right,
salvage it and
right,
protect that house or put it in a trust or whatever they have to do. Same thing with veterans aid and attendance benefits, which are great benefits. They do a 5 year look back also. And yes, real estate is like the one thing. And I think people are just like, they just assume like, well, yes, this is my mother's house or my father's house, and it's just going to get passed on to the children, or, they can all sell it if they want. No, we have to protect that, and that's been a good lesson. I mean, even when I started doing this years and years ago, I remember thinking, okay, this is something I need to be aware of. And I did. I had, my attorney draw up things and make sure that things were taken care of for my kids and the house was protected and things like that, because I don't want my kids to be homeless, and,
right.
but yes, I mean, yes, again, it's just knowing the system and kind of knowing how to protect yourself because we all think we're immortal and even for ourselves, not just our parents, but we all think we're immortal and like, okay, that's years away. I won't need
Right.
this for years and years,
Yes.
and it's
Yes.
like, I mean, we see it. I mean, look in your family, people have died young,
Yeah.
people are dying. I'm seeing a lot of younger residents lately, and it's just, it's so sad, and we can never be too earlier. It's never too early to be proactive. So just knowing the information.
And I think too, I had a lot of comments come back because I think that generation too thinks that they're saving their house and all the memories
Yeah.
in it and all the
I
knickknacks that the
know.
kids are going to want. And the kids are like, oh my God, when you die, it's just going to be all this work for me.
Such a good point. Such a good point. Because what happens is, and I can attest to this, and I know you did a lot of moving and packing and all that
Yes.
too.
Yes.
It's like, no, it is work. And that's why so many companies that I work with on a daily basis to help that downsize, sell items. I mean, it's not, throwing away stuff. And I get that they are, the generation that a lot of depression era. I get that
Yep. Yeah.
saving was important to them. I totally
Yeah.
understand that. But like you said, it becomes, I hate to say a burden, but it becomes a lot of work for everybody
It's just
else.
more
So
work that didn't need to be necessary. Like you don't need
exactly.
to save that or say, out of here, what would you like to keep? What are the few
Yes,
things that you would like to keep
absolutely.
before anything happens and then start getting rid of stuff? I mean, I know,
Absolutely.
it
And
means
even
a
going
lot
through
to
like
the
my,
person.
yeah, even going through my grandma stuff, I was like, I really didn't want a lot because I have
Yeah,
memories. And I mean, there was a couple of pieces of like just like custom jewelry that just reminded me of her. Not
right,
that they were like valuable or it had nothing to do with money.
right,
But other than that, I didn't, you just have memories.
right.
And like you said, our generation is more practical, I think, like that.
And I just, again want to reiterate, people think that because, oh, your mom has a house and now you're living in there because she moved into assisted living,
Right.
but it is not your house. If it is
It is
not
not your
in
house.
your name, it's in her name. And if she has to go on, she runs out of liquid assets, she
Right.
has to go on elderly waiver, whatever it's called in your state, that they're gonna, it doesn't matter when, but when you sell that house, they're going to want
Yes.
their money back off the top, and they'll put a lien against checking
Right.
accounts or anything like that if it
And
hasn't
it
been
doesn't mean
taken
you can
care of.
hurry up. Yeah. I'm sorry. It doesn't mean you can hurry up and transfer that house
No.
to somebody's name either. That's
Yeah.
like a huge red flag. So
Yeah.
it's yes,
And
it's
that's what
knowing.
people think, like, oh, we'll do
Yes.
it right away. But again, it's a 5-year look back. So
Yes.
that's why it's something you have to plan
Yeah.
before it gets to any of this, because had that been done here, and again, we didn't even know about all this. That's why
Right.
I'm trying to share so much. I
Yes.
don't want anybody to be put
Me
in this
either. Yeah.
situation. And
Sometimes I'll
speaking,
have clients. Oh, I'm sorry, Tracy. Go
no,
ahead.
go ahead. No, finish. Yep.
I'm so sorry. I was just gonna say sometimes I'll have clients that'll say, yeah, they initially say, oh, there's no money, and I'm like, okay, well, let's do a deep dive. Let's look at this because there may not be like money in the checking account, which I
Right.
understand. You still get, even though it may not be much, you're getting your social security. There may be a house. And then like recently I had a client say, I mean, we have like my parents have like 3 cars, but they're not worth a lot. And I'm like, okay, but that's still value that even
Yes.
if it's a $5,000 car, that
Yes.
still counts.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
or they have an IRA, they haven't really,
Yes.
okay, they're
Stocks,
going to come after that,
bonds.
so
Yep.
it's all,
Because
it's all, yeah,
I think they think it may be hidden. How are they going to
right,
find out they have stocks? Believe me, they're going to
right.
find out. It's the
They will
government.
find it. Medicaid will find
Yeah,
it.
they'll find it. Um, and a big thing I want to ask you, because I don't know, and I've been bringing up the question, like there's people like you, which most people don't know. There's people like you, but who advocates for people that don't have any family?
That's a good question. And again, why planning is so important because if somebody can set it up ahead of time, if they have a neighbor, an attorney, they can put everything, in the hands to deal with. If they don't have family, that would be great if they could do it ahead of time. Like you said, that doesn't always happen. And if they don't have family, it does either, unfortunately, sometimes an attorney will have to take over as, like basically not the beneficiary, but they have to do everything. They have to act on their behalf as their power of attorney, basically.
Right.
Um, I see a lot of like if somebody's living alone per se at home, maybe, and they don't have family, I see a lot of like neighbors checking on people, maybe someone from church. Um, it just people
But
that are not tied to them.
when it's time for them, because I did a video on it called elder orphans. Never even heard of that. And
Um,
I saw that term and I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, because there's so many people now, and now a lot of couples, because it's too expensive, a lot of people are not having kids, a lot of younger
right.
people. And so when they get older, I can't even imagine what it's going to be like that.
Oh my
Hopefully
gosh.
better. Hopefully better.
I
Hopefully they'll
hope.
change the world. But so a lot of these, people don't have kids. They don't talk to their family. People have died, passed away.
Right.
That can you can they hire who would they hire to help take care of, like, getting them into when it's time, like a
Yeah.
assisted living or
Yeah. I mean, there are geriatric care managers all around the country that, do kind of similar to what I do, but then they can do like more of a clinical component as well. People like myself with senior placement, I mean, yes, we do help them get into assisted living, which is no cost for families. We're compensated through the communities, but there's so much more. Sometimes people will come to me, they're not ready yet. So I want to make sure they're armed with resources, whether it be home health, hospice, VA benefits, whatever it is. So, I mean, I've had to move clients myself because they have no family, whatever it is to help them along. We really wear a lot of hats. And it's
yeah,
an honor to help people. It really
right.
is. And I love it. And I would not want to do anything else. I'm just honored to be a part of this transition in their life. But yes, other than myself, I mean, people hire private duty home health aides sometimes to take over. Like maybe they'll come in and do care for a few hours, but then they become like family and they're like, I need you to help me with more things. So, it's kind of all different, but you're right. It's like the elder orphan term. You're like, oh my gosh, it's scary, and you don't necessarily want it to get to the point that an attorney is
Yeah,
overseeing
is
everything,
your,
because if one is
yeah,
appointed, you
right,
don't, I mean, they just kind of do with whatever knowledge they have. Not
right,
that their intentions are bad, but they don't always know the ins and the outs. They don't know preferences of people, and they just kind of do what they have in front of them. So,
right. It's not personal, it's
right,
business. You know,
absolutely, which is so
yeah,
sad. I know.
it it is sad. And so I try to think about how you get around that. Like, yeah, if you have a good friend or if you have a niece or a nephew or
Right.
somebody that you're
Somebody,
close to
friend. Yeah. I
that,
think like, yeah. And I think it's hard, like I said, when you're already in that situation, if you haven't planned for it, to
right,
plan for it, definitely. If somebody's like, listen, I'm, maybe single, have no kids, have no family, like set up somebody to handle everything, to be your power of attorney. It could be a random attorney that you trust. It could be whoever you want, because you want to try to avoid that. But like you said, for people who are already in that situation, it usually I see it a lot. It falls on like a neighbor or somebody they used to work with, or just which God bless those people that are helping them. And if somebody is in that situation and I get involved, I'm trying to help them as much as I can. You mentioned social workers. A lot of times, they'll go above and beyond to try
oh,
to
for
give them extra
sure.
resources
Yeah,
because they know they're alone. So
right.
it's just this case by case scenario, and but we really do want to help people.
And it's so hard too. It's, when you talk about planning, I've watched, I watch a lot of YouTube videos on this because I was so desperate, like just to find some
Yeah,
common and you know, you you have to truly trust who you're putting this in the hands of. And also you kind of you have to have
right.
their willingness to do it because it is a big job for somebody.
Huge.
Yeah. So, and I was going to say too, I was thinking about this the other day because it's the small things that make a difference. When I was waiting to find, I did all the paperwork, jumped through hoops. Literally, I was at FedEx because, I don't have a printer here, you know, making copies because when you do the application, you have to send all this stuff, the
Right.
lease, they want, power of
Oh, so
attorney,
much.
all this stuff. You have to go to the bank to, get the bank statement so that they know you're under 3,000 or whatever your threshold is in your state.
A lot of legwork.
Yeah. And then, it's a waiting game because I know this social worker, like he has a lot of clients that he's dealing with. And so, oh, it looks like you got, oh, there
There
you
we
go.
are. Okay.
There we go.
I know it just
We're
got
back.
funky for a minute
It
there.
always
I know.
happened once. But
Always.
oh, so when I was waiting to find out, because, again, I don't know the system. And so I'm like, well, how long does it take to go through? How long do I have to wait? And for some reason, okay, there we go. Uh, and when I got the call from the social worker that said, because I first got a letter saying I was denied, not for the elder waiver, it was for the
Hmm.
medical assistance or something. And I called him right away in a panic. I'm like, oh my God. And he goes, I don't know why they send those out. He goes, those are just auto generated.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And I'm sorry, you broke up a little bit, but I think you brought up a good point though with the medical and the past the elderly waiver.
Yeah.
It does get confusing because they do those two separate things, and people
Yeah.
sometimes panic, like, what do you mean so it yes, they're very separated.
Yeah. And I'm just finding all this out now. Hold on. Okay, now you're back. I just wanted to make sure
Because how
I'm
would
connected.
everybody know?
Huh?
I know it says on my end, it says Tracy's network bandwidth is low. I don't know why it's saying yours is, but
I'm just
okay.
in the same spot. I guess it doesn't even matter if I'm in the van or not.
So
Um, okay.
I
Oh my God.
usually blame mine.
Yeah. Looks like mine.
It's so
Anyway,
weird.
so I wanted to say
Okay.
too, so then when I did find out, when I did, he's like, oh no, it looks like it's going through. He just needed like it to go through one lady. But are we
Mhm.
still stuck here? Am I stuck on your end? Am I stuck there? Are we good?
Yeah, I hear you now, I think.
Okay. All right. But one of the biggest things is even just that him saying that, all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, I feel so much better. And I don't know if you people have even noticed, like my
Right.
outlook is sunnier. Do you know what I mean? And it was just the help that I needed or
Yeah,
that
because that
answer.
can, yeah,
And I said, I felt like one day I
yes,
was drowning. If you ever gone swimming and you go too far and you
yes.
don't have enough air until you're coming up and you don't think you're going to make it to the top. And then all of a sudden you break the water and you get this big gulp of air. And it was like,
That's a great analogy.
yeah, and that's what I felt like. Felt like I was drowning. And all of a sudden I broke through the surface and I was like, oh my God, thank you, you know?
And like you said, it just takes one person or one outlook or one piece of news or whatever to
Yes.
change that because it is you're drowning and you're just submerged in that water and it seems like no way out because you're just more piles on
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's amazing how quick that can change though and how much relief you feel when you finally get somebody that can help or give you the right answer or it's like you said your whole outlook changes. It really does.
Yeah, and like I said, and the life preservers waiting up there for me, and it's the
Yeah.
social workers. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That I could hold on to them because, they answer all my questions, and I tell them I'm just fumbling through this. I don't understand it.
Right. And they know that. And I
Yeah,
think that's so important. Like, and I think that's been like the general message that you've been conveying this while we've been doing this video is, which is so great, is that the more information people can seek out, like start asking questions, start preparing, because there's a lot we don't know. And it's not like somebody's, I mean, okay, I do this for a living and I talk to people, but for the general population, nobody's going to just be like, hey, let me make sure you know about all these programs. Let me make sure you know what you're doing. And
yeah. You
it's
don't know
crazy.
until you have to use it.
Exactly. And then it might be too late.
Right. And that's where do you know what I mean? Where I'm just
Right.
like, okay, what do I do next? Who needs what? And
And it's a full-time job. It is a
oh,
full-time job trying to understand everything, do the legwork, like even going to the bank, getting the statement, mailing
yeah.
this, faxing this. It is a full-time job and it's
Well,
exhausting.
and then on top of it, if you're the caregiver, like I said, like, moving my mom, that pretty much threw me over the edge.
Oh my
And
gosh,
then
I know.
trying to look for a job myself,
Right.
and trying to still work and then, do the prescriptions, go to the take them to the doctor, and then my own health myself, trying
Right.
to keep up with my life.
And I think that's a good point. And I was going to make that point earlier, so I'm glad you brought it up. One of the things, and I actually was Googling some of the recent statistics on caregiver burnout this morning. It is shocking. I mean,
Yeah.
and it just, I want to drive home the point that it's like we need to recognize what's going on. And when we get to that point, before it's too late, because our own health, like you said, will just deteriorate, our mental health, everything. And then we're no good to our loved ones if we can't take care of ourselves. But it happens quick. And it's just like everything blows up in your face. And you just, like you said, you don't want to get out of bed because it's just all consuming that. So I think it's like really important to try to at least people need to recognize like, whoa, I am not okay. And it's okay to say you're not okay.
Oh, more than okay. And that's what I want people to know. Like, I'll be the
Yes.
first to say it. I'm not
Yeah.
okay. Or, I wasn't. I'm doing a lot better because things are
Yeah.
now starting to lift. And like I said, I'm 59. I've been through this before. Like, if I was younger, maybe I would think that was the end, like things were going to stay that way. But I
Right.
know there's always an upswing. It
Yes.
doesn't feel like it when you're in it. I know it
It
doesn't feel like
doesn't.
it.
I know. It feels never ending. It really
It
does.
does. But all it takes, like I said, is just that one. And that's how I felt. I felt like I popped out of the water and got a breath. And
I
I'm like,
love that
okay,
analogy. That's so great.
I can do this a little bit more.
It pushes you then. You're like, I can keep going. Yes.
Yeah. It
And
was
that's so
just,
I hate that. I mean, it's good to have these, moments of clarity, but it's like, oh, it's so sad that that's what we're waiting for, but that's a lot of times what it comes down to. And I hate for people to go through that. And I
well,
try to avoid it. I try
honestly,
to do a lot behind the scenes for people they don't even know about, so they're
uh-huh.
not stressing about it. Because like you said, it's just a horrible feeling.
Well, and when I was at the depths of the bowels, you know, I thought, she's going to live longer than me anyway because I don't think I can do
Right.
this anymore, you know?
Right. I know. I know.
And I'm like,
Pretty
who's going to
amazing.
take care of me?
Well, that's just it. We run ourselves ragged
Yeah.
and we're like, okay. And everybody always references the plane and the oxygen mask,
Yeah.
and it's true. We have to take care of ourselves, just like on the plane. You put your own oxygen mask on if you're going down and then help everybody else.
Yeah.
We're not programmed to take care of ourselves. We're
No.
just not, but it's something we have to like, even if it's an hour. I'm not saying everybody has to go away for like at a 5-star resort for 5 days and
No.
get, no, just an hour, read a book, grab a cup of coffee, do nothing, whatever. Just little things are important.
And I will tell you what has helped me tremendously. I have gone off all social media. I'm not on Facebook. I'm not on TikTok. I'm not on
You did
Instagram
remove
because
yourself. Yeah.
when I would lay in my bed, like I would go to work maybe, and then I would come right home and I would just sit and scroll and scroll
Right.
and scroll. And a
You're
lot
like,
of
whoa.
times it's not good news, do you know what I mean? And
Right.
it,
It consumes your brain.
it consumes you. And so, I started reading or I'm starting painting again.
That's awesome.
Things.
I love that.
And so, because I think you're already so overwhelmed with all this
Oh,
stuff that then, having all this input, sometimes I'm even scared to read the comments because I know sometimes what I say, I think people are think I'm being controversial. I never have
people
that.
tell me, I know people yell at me
You
sometimes.
know how it is. It doesn't matter. You could be the nicest person on the internet and
It doesn't
somebody
matter.
would somebody would say,
People,
and
I still love the one where they said I was the scum of the earth. I'm like,
oh,
okay. I'm like,
thank you.
if you only knew what I did, yeah.
Well,
But it
and I
doesn't matter.
will tell you that like my mental health is good now. I've switched the perspective. Like YouTube for
I
me,
love that.
now I said is about me. You don't have to watch, you don't have to care. I don't care,
Right.
what you think about me. And there's always going to be people like that. Everybody deals with it who's on the internet.
Yes.
Um,
I think if
but
you're secure though, you're like, who cares?
but that was I was in a precarious mental state.
Yes.
Anything
Yes.
could have thrown me even further into the depths, and I was pretty low. And
And the fact that
so,
you recognize that and we're like,
yeah,
this is what I need to do, I think is very commendable because just recognizing it is good. And I will say social media does suck you in. And sometimes I feel guilty, like if I can't get back on to answer comments right away or a few days,
right,
because a lot of it, I do get business from social media. So there's
right.
always this like, I have to stay up with it, I have to stay up with it. But sometimes you just need to step away from it. And that's
Well,
okay.
and that's the hard part. Social media is a business tool to reach out to people.
Right.
Thank God it's not my business. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And truly, I'm doing this now to more share. And, I started posting daily recently, and it was
Yeah.
because I needed something to get me up and give me a goal every day to
That's
work
awesome.
towards.
Yeah.
And it's actually really helped me. And again,
Good.
it was just a shift in mind perspective about it.
Yeah.
And so I'm doing a lot better. I know people can tell, but again,
Oh,
it
yeah.
just,
I was going to say it's very evident in your video, even just the daily posting and just the way you're showing
yeah,
up. Not that there was anything wrong before, but
no.
you could see the transformation
But like you
and the
said,
relief.
we're human. It's
We're
real life.
human.
They're
It's,
true emotions.
and I will never judge anybody for, like I said, the private messages people sending me to like, I am very ashamed to admit this. I'm like, I will never judge. And
No,
nobody else should
never.
either until they're in that
No.
situation. There's a lot of people that will comment on like other comments on my videos,
Right.
and they will, if somebody says like, oh yes, I put my parent in assisted living or I did this or I did that, and somebody will come at them and say, how dare you, and it's like, and I've made a video before, like, stop. Should be no caregiver guilt, shame. Like we're not shaming these people. Just stop. Everybody
I've
does
had
what they
people
do.
I've had people say that to me in my comments.
Yeah, and it's like that's horrible.
Why don't you take care of her? Oh, that's awful that you're letting your mom go into. I'm like, I live in a van. Where am I going
Right.
to put her?
Well, and not only that, I mean, and I know Joy watches and we love
Yeah,
her, but you have sacrificed. You gave up Charlene and that lifestyle because of your mom. And that's
right,
okay. It's not
right,
a bad thing.
right.
But
No.
people don't understand what's going on in everybody's life and the sacrifices they may be doing behind the scenes.
And that's
So,
the thing. You don't know. anybody's bad. You see a snippet
No.
of whatever, and
Yes.
maybe you would do that. I'm so happy for you. I'm so happy
If
that
somebody can do that, awesome.
you have the luxury
Maybe they don't have
of
to work and they can devote
having that
themselves.
life. And that's what I
Yes.
mean. I can't go grocery shopping every week. I can't go to bring her to all the doctor's appointments. I can't, you know, go to the
No.
dentist every 3 months. So anyway, so just know, don't feel guilty. And people are going to say, at least if you're
Yes.
not on YouTube,
There's
you
no
don't
right
have
or
to
wrong.
hear it. But I get the randomest, quote
Oh
things.
my
And
gosh,
now,
I know.
and
And it's
now what's
like,
funny is I just laugh at them or I delete
I
them.
do too.
My channel, if I don't like it, I just delete you.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I actually don't even delete some of the comments because I'm just like, I don't even care. Like, if that's what you feel, I'm not gonna block you. If you want to tell me I suck, fine. I don't
Right.
care.
I
The
again,
people that truly understand what I do don't say that, but
right.
people are entitled to their opinion.
And so let's wrap this up because I want you to, because I think maybe if we've been talking, it may be the first time people have seen me interview you.
Yeah.
So tell us like what you do and how people pay for you and
Yes.
just feel.
So I have worked in senior living and healthcare for 25 years, and I have owned my company for 6 years, and I own a senior living placement company. I started, I'm in Cleveland, Ohio. I'm local here, but have been just largely in part due to TikTok, actually, working nationwide with people. But what I do is I meet with families that sometimes are ready for assisted living, sometimes are not. And again, it's a very personalized approach, walking them through what their needs are, what their anticipatory needs are, what their family dynamics are, all of that. Narrowing it down, because I'm very particular about the communities I work with and I stay on top of them. So I narrow it down to maybe three max, tour with the families, help them through the process. Like you said, maybe it's getting rid of decades worth of junk in the house,
Mhm.
helping them with every part of the transition, clinical, administrative, whatever it is. And then even after they move in, plus ancillary services, things like that. My services are no cost to families, which is great, as I am compensated by the assisted living communities. I have contracts with everybody, and I always disclose that just because I have a contract with somebody doesn't mean I'm going to work with them. Perfect example in your case, management or the building was sold. I stay on top of those things, and I'm very very cautious about that. So, um, but yes, it is a free service for families, and I'm really here to guide them every step of this journey. And yeah, sometimes, like I said, people aren't ready. That's okay. I'll give you other resources. I can help with veterans aid and attendance benefit. I can help connect people with other resources, whatever they need. So
Mhm.
yeah,
And what's the name of your company?
Premier Senior Solutions out of Cleveland, Ohio.
Yep.
Yeah,
And of course, I will put all of Jenny's
thank
information
you.
down below, like I always do.
Thank
And
you so much.
well, thanks, Jenny. I'm sorry about your grandma, but I know, and
Thank
I'm so
you.
happy we talked about it that you and your mom were
Yeah,
there. What a beautiful transition, and what a
it really was.
beautiful, beautiful long life. 97. You can't
Oh,
ask for more than
and
that.
she made us laugh until the very end. She really did.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
and I'm glad you're doing better. I could see you're just radiating, and I can see it. And I'm
yeah.
glad you're kind of broke the
Right.
surface of the water.
Well, and that's why I shared this because I don't want to sugarcoat it. Like I said, I've been
Yeah.
in the depths below, not thinking there was an out. But again,
Yeah.
knowing, having lived 59 years, that there's an upswing somewhere. It may not seem
Yeah.
like it right now if you're in the bowels, but just know that there is help. And
Yes.
that just keep, and hopefully
It'll get
that's
better.
why reach out to Jenny and she can help you,
Yeah.
with resources or something. Because
Absolutely.
some people don't even know where to
It's
start.
just knowing where to go sometimes. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Absolutely. It's an honor to help people, and
Yeah,
one day at a time, right? That's all we
right.
can do.
All we could do. Well, we love you, Jenny. Thank you so much.
I love you, Tracy. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, we'll be
Always so much
talking
fun.
soon, okay?
All right. Sounds good. You have a good
Okay,
day. We'll talk soon.
okay, sounds good.
Okay.
Bye now.
Bye.